Thank you so much, Nicole. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I see we have some people from all over the world today. So I am thrilled to be here and to be having a discussion with Dieudonné Gakire. He survived the genocide in Rwanda in 1994 as a child and has dedicated his life to peace building since he was at a very young age. So he is going to talk a little bit about his journey, and then I'm going to be gently interrupting so we stay in a conversation format. And just so you know, I have known Dieudonné for quite a few years now. At Generation Human Rights, where I am the founder and director, we have a program called Imagine Next Gen Voices Reflect on Peace, where youth in peaceful countries, meaning no current armed conflict, have conversations about peace and develop social justice projects with youth who have survived wars. And Dieudonné has been a part of that project for a number of years now. And so I know him already. So this is exciting that you're about to. So Dieudonné, I'm going to pass the mic over to you and let you introduce yourself and start the discussion.
Thank you so much, Elena. I think I've done a big part of my introduction. Um, My name is Dieudonné Gakire. I'm from Rwanda. I am the genocide survivor and also the founder of the Dusego Empowerment Hub. And something else which is very special to me is that now I'm a father of 1 year old daughter. And becoming a parent has even made my commitment to peace even deeper. So yeah, I appreciate you for this opportunity to share my journey in peace building with you. So I have two stories that are connected. First, as a genocide survivor, um, um, yeah, I was too young when it started, and later I decided to share my story to help and ensure that what I went through as a child, what my family went through, as also my country, could never happen again. And now the work I'm doing now is promoting uh, peace by helping the vulnerable children and youth in the rural areas having access to education. So, but still sharing stories is still important, and I believe um, that sharing our stories, even painful ones, is one of the most powerful to build peace. So, by remembering, by speaking, by listening, we can heal, we can prevent, and we can create a better future. Um, my, for sure, many of you know about 1994, the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. So that's where my story starts. At that time, I was about 3 years old. I didn't really understand what was happening, but my memory now is about fear, hiding, and being separated from my family. Um, when the genocide started, my mother was pregnant, and we fled our home, first to neighbors, and later went to concentrated camp. In that camp, there was no food, no shelter, no medical support, and my mother gave birth there in this poor condition, and because of that, my young brother died. Um, and later, when I heard about this story and I asked my mother about the passing of my young brother, she told me if maybe she could use my clothes to cover him. he could maybe survive, but me dying. So that changed my life and also made me feel maybe he died in my place. And always like wondering if I do bad, maybe he could do better. Um, so apart from him, many family members were killed during the genocide. I can just give you a few examples. Both my grandparents, mother and father of my mother, were burned alive in their home. My father's father, grandfather, and uncle were thrown in the river. There was a theory that Tutsis were not originally from Rwanda, that they came to Rwanda from Ethiopia, and that was a story that they have to put them in the river called Nyabarongo that is connected to the River Nile for them to return home. Um, so by chance, I survived the genocide with my parents, saved by the RPF soldiers. And again, from this camp, we lived in another camp because our houses were destroyed. It was not safe. Um, and still, the life was hard. I grew up in a rural area. Um, and this I have in common with the other people in my community with no electricity, with no clean water, and very limited access to education. So as I grew older, I often felt anger, sadness, and confusion. I kept asking myself, reflecting to what happened and the consequences I was going through, asking myself, how could human beings do this to each other? At the age of 16 is when I moved from my home village to Kigali, the capital of Rwanda. And there I realized that anger would only destroy me. I decided to transform my pain into a mission, becoming a peace builder, to tell our story to the world and to make sure this never happens again. Um, and my work in peace building, I was, of course, already inspired by many things, but my work started in high school when I was in a survivors association and creating artificial families in a way to heal each other because many parents um, had been killed, and this was causing trauma and social isolation in schools. So we came up with this idea of having artificial families with the fathers and mothers in school, of course, who are the same age. So that's how I started. And later, I wrote my book, A Dreaming Child, documenting how children. Elena, do you want to say something?
I do want to ask you a question, Dieudonné. So
Yes.
that's that's amazing that the survivors family unit was
Mhm.
created. Did the students create that for each other, or did that come from outside the high school?
It's an idea that came from the University of Rwanda, and then many other schools, universities, and high school copied uh, the idea.
That's
And then
wonderful.
it was among the students to decide who is the leader, who is the parent, like in our case, we had four families in the whole association. And yeah.
Can you tell us what your high school was like? What the ethnic diversity or not was like? And how
Um,
as you were treated as a Tutsi by others? Did prejudice and
um,
stereotypes continue?
in Rwanda, high school is two parts. There is ordinary level and advanced level. So in ordinary level, I was still in the village. It was so difficult. Um, the tension, the division, the hate was still active, and of course, it was close to my family house or village. So then they know who you are. So, and in many cases, we were discriminated by our fellow students, our teachers, even the school leadership. Um, yeah, it was really tough. And of course, also myself, I was still um, um, like even my friends or my cycle was not diverse because it was still like us and them, and of course we're a minority. That's why it was difficult. And when I moved to Kigali, it was different because areas cities are more diverse. It's also when I started to see students from different backgrounds from outside. So after 1994, we had many communities, Rwandese communities who returned home from neighboring countries. So it's when I started to meet them. Then it was no more like survivors and children of perpetrators or Hutus. So in Kigali, it was more diverse and it was more okay. And of course, with time, the society as a whole is, healing slowly.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Um, yeah, and of course these divisions and the how the teachers, the leaders, younger ones will involved. That's what made me speak, be able to speak about it because many people were not ready to talk about their stories, were not ready to forgive or to ask for forgiveness. That's why and also there's another fact here. The genocide, it's always committed by the government and the politicians are the mastermind. So many young people didn't want to talk about it. It was like a politics, and politics here had the bad image. That's why they wanted like to be active in the arts, in the sports, but not anything about the history or politics. Um, and then I had to do it. Not I enjoyed it, um, but at that time, yeah, I already know the consequence of hate or division. Um, I mentioned earlier. Now I'm a father. I have, I have a daughter. A daughter. If I don't forgive or address the issue of unity, then you know also my child will suffer from this. So that's why I decided to contribute something to make sure the future is safe. Yeah, I did this to many communities. I spoke to many high school in Rwanda and later beyond. And then in my own experiences, I realized something important. It's so hard to change the minds of adults, but young people are willing to do things differently. Um, that's how somehow I stopped speaking a lot, and I started this project to Dusego Empowerment Hub. Um, I said I moved to Kigali and later to other countries, and I was going back to my home village. I always see the children who are together, who don't care about the differences. But at the same time, I realize that the little opportunities they have for learning, for dreaming, and for building their future. Uh, because even now, there's no like playgrounds, no library, no access to education and books. And I decided to start the Second Empowerment Hub, which is a community center in my village, and it is dedicated to promoting education, peace, and opportunity. Um, because in our own experience, we realized that when people are poor or have no access to opportunities, it is easy for the politicians to use them into violence. So our mission is very simple, is to build an environment where young people can dream, create, and learn, and become leaders of peaceful and prosperous Rwanda. In our center, maybe shortly I will share some pictures to have an idea about it, the village, and of course the center. We have a library, and many kids in this village they touch for the first time a book in our hub. So we have sports activities and arts. We bring young people or children together to build the friendship and the trust. We
Dieudonné, are we
train them.
supposed to see pictures? Do you have
Yes, we
pictures of
can
this?
say it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So, so here we go. Thank you.
Yes. So this is the community center. It is at the top of the hill of my home village. Um, Maybe you heard Rwanda is a thousand hills country. So and here it is after school program. So kids come to the hub after school and come every day during the holidays. Yes, I talked about the sports, the arts that we have dance group, also train them in the English communication. Um, yeah, myself, I often go there to share some things, I know with the kids. Um, and as I said, without electricity, internet, these kids are not exposed to many things. So we have a makerspace program to introduce them to the robotics. Um, and in Rwanda, we are in a stage that we can like put things together. Don't have industry yet that create things, but um, like like the idea of Volkswagen, the car brand, here they can put things together and make the car. That's why we are trying to introduce to the kids about making things with their own hands. Yeah, here this group was working on the traffic lights. You see how kids are curious and active. Uh, yes, here this is this photo was from the last year's closing ceremony of the summer camp. It was the first time, so we are in a second year. Last year we organized first summer camp and we trained kids in dancing, poetry, singing, and then we invited their parents who trusted us and sent the kids to us. And we had more than 200 kids who were coming to the hub every day, and they were showing to their parents what they had been learning at the hub. This is the library I mentioned. Yeah, it is really important. At the beginning, I was thinking about the library because I love books, and that's one of the way you can help our kids to explore the world they live in, uh, and also know a lot about the history and also about the see how they can contribute to the future. Um, Yeah, that this is a few pictures. Maybe there is a link that we have website and also YouTube. We have some videos to see some of our work.
Dieudonné, you mentioned that you wrote a book. Can you tell us about your book?
Um, I mentioned already the idea of survivors association in school. In this school, I had responsibility when I was 17 years old. I became a father, and for me it was so special. And and all my, let's say my kids, you know what I mean. The members of my association had very touching stories, and I asked myself, what can I do? Because I was like, yeah, maybe the future generation will never know or understand what went through. And I started correcting their stories. Um, and Ilana, you asked me how it was in school. So after writing down the stories of the member of my association, this created dialogue at school. Everyone wanted to read the story. but also question our narrative because we still had the anger, this group killed us, killed our future, killed our families. And then some kids were like, I was not there, I didn't kill anyone, how are you generalizing, Um, so and then I wanted to make more research, and of course in my research was just collecting stories to show how this genocide affected survivors during and after. But this conversation also made me add another important part, how the genocide affected the children of perpetrators. It's something that was not like many people were not talking about. Uh, and it was also, interesting for me also to know about it or to correct the stories, to see how also these children were affected. Of course, I also went to the prison to talk to perpetrators. I interviewed the children, but also interviewed their parents who were in the prison to see what they think about their children. And of course, I also wanted to, kind of a message they have for us, for the next generation, to not do the same mistake. Yeah, that's it for my book.
That's amazing, Dieudonné. And do you have any stories that come to mind that affected you to share from the children of the perpetrators? Because that is something that is left out of a lot of the telling of history. Is there a moment you want to
Um,
share?
so there are two things that uh, there is, of course, shame. Um, yeah, when you compare, of course, for survivor, if you think I lost parents, and it's also something important. But another kid, it's my parents who killed your parents. That was so heavy for these children, and of course you have to live this for your lifetime. And another thing is, if your father or your mother is in prison, so then you are raised by one parent at home, or if both of them also are perpetrators, you are like orphan and nobody have sympathy about you because they are perpetrators. And sometimes also want to you have always to visit them with the food, with something to the prison. Um, yeah, of course, I always don't try to compare the pain, but I also want to feel them. And uh, and of course, in my journey collecting these stories, I said in the beginning, I grew up with on one cycle of survivors community, and this is during this book. It's when I started to connect with the other side. Um, yeah, and it was yeah. I don't know if I can call it amazing, but uh, crying with them. Um, share this painful experience. Yeah, it was something powerful to me, and it changed a lot in me to what I'm doing now. Um, yeah, yeah. Also, what I'm doing with the Dusego Empowerment Hub, giving jobs to the local community, it's also itself is a peace center because I have perpetrators who served their time in the prison, uh, took part in the construction. I have people who were fighting in Congo against the government, also like a carpenter, the one who made up our furnitures. And of course, the kids, I don't ask who is your parent, yeah. And of course, the inspiration, it's really from this journey of collecting the stories and also trying to listen to the other side and like to try to have the balanced story.
I'm really taken by the thread of the power of stories, how it's worked, weaves through your journey, and has brought you to creating this library.
Yeah.
So in this library, I know this is about inspiring these young people and their education books and history books. Do you also have curriculum or projects for them to share their stories just about their lives now? Not necessarily
Yeah.
in a direct connection to the genocide, but I'm interested how you're using the power of stories now.
Yeah, we just started, we're in the second year, and yeah, and of course, one of the thing myself I experienced, as you said, is the power of story. When I said like I decided to share my story to make sure what happens never happen again. I don't have army or I'm not UN, but I believe in the power of story. So I also encourage them to share their stories. Of course, they're not genocide survivors; they are much younger. But every story matter, every voice is important towards peace and unity because that's what matters now. It's peace and unity.
That's beautiful, Dieudonné. And before we turn this over to our guests to ask questions, I'm curious, is there a way for people now to purchase your book? Is it sold out? I remember I had to go through great lengths to get a copy of your book. Is there a way now?
Um,
Is it online or?
yeah, it is. Yeah, it's also another story, the publishing journey. But yes, it is on Amazon in English. People can. It's called A Dreaming Child. They can. Yeah, it's already in the. It's
Right.
already in the chat. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we're going to open up to our guests for questions. And if you can raise your hand, so I see that within Zoom, or if you can't find that, if you just raise your hand, or if I don't see you, you can just start talking. But does anyone have any questions? Want to begin questions for Dieudonné? And I'm going through there are a lot of us. I'm going through different screens, seeing if anyone has a question. Elizabeth? Elizabeth, you're
Go
on
ahead.
mute. We can't hear you. Okay.
Are we good? Good. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being here with us to enlighten us. I'm very interested in the Rwandan um, truth and reconciliation process. I've been practicing that here in the US for about 20 years, and I became a substitute teacher um, because I have those skills, or I have that passion for it, passion for people coming together, telling their stories. I would sort of say leveling the playing field. So, what is your, if you could answer maybe a few things that, how does truth and reconciliation come into your life? If you could share anything on that. And um, do you have any advice for a teacher in an American high school in 2025 to just sort of open things up, to get the kids to open up, perhaps tell stories, listen to stories, sort of understand um, something different than division and racism and all of that?
Thank you. The 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 um, the truth and reconciliation. So in our case, in our experience in Rwanda, um, so during the genocide, Rwanda as a whole, we were 7 million population. 1 million was killed, and more than 2 million participated in the killing. And maybe it's part of the topic of today's event. How do you heal a society after conflict? Then is it punishing, putting this 2 million of your people in a prison? Maybe not. And if you put them there, what about the survivors? Um, because we're hiding, didn't know anything about their loved ones who were killed. And some of them, to forgive or even to accept life again, the condition was to know the truth or the stories of their loved ones. That's why this idea of truth and reconciliation, what we call gachacha, the traditional court, came as a solution not to punish but choose the unity, and also and that has worked quite well. Of course, it wasn't easy for both sides, but in the end, we realized that there was no other alternative to heal and also focus for the future. And another thing about this was like from our own way, like from our ancestors, how they used when there is a conflict, how do to bring people come together. And of course, there are people who are, you know, respected in the community because everyone know this person is good person, has good values. Then they can help other people to resolve uh, the issues. Um, and yeah, and then the other issues that we have now, the hate speeches, the racism, discrimination, and all this. I still see the importance of the stories, the power of sharing stories, and also for kids, yeah, especially kids and young people to have access to all kinds of stories, uh, because it's easy for me now in Rwanda uh, to 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 feel what is happening in Ukraine now or in Gaza. It's far away. Um, and in 1994 it was Rwanda. Now, of course, it's Ukraine, Gaza, and even or Congo or Sudan or other countries. Um, um, yeah, and many times I speak to people and like, then say, yeah, I remember watching this in my home on TV, and I didn't know it was such serious when I talk about what happened in Rwanda. But what if we expose our kids to different stories, then they will feel more connected to that. Same as genocide, it's not my story, it's story of everyone, it's a story of humanity. Um, Even if something again happen now through racism or other things, so we are all responsible if we are not doing anything. Um, and as I said, you don't need to be a government or 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 you want to take action. Um, Even book or sharing stories or experiences or inviting someone. Um, yeah, that helps a lot.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I hope I answered your question well.
You helped me. Yeah, it was a big help to hear that. Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
You do donate. Okay, I'm looking through the screen for anyone raising their hands. Or if someone doesn't have their hand raised, but they have a question. I'm not. Oh, Nicole, your question. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dieudonné, I had the privilege of hearing Dieudonné speak to a group of students last year, and one of the things that you shared was as a high school student, really bringing them memorialization, trying to like think about ways to bring other students in to capture memory and taking them to memorial sites. And I'm just curious if there are other ways you think that, you know, we have some educators in the group. Are there approaches that you would suggest for, you know, middle and high school students who might be able to think about history or ways to get involved to kind of connect that storytelling with things that are our histories and our current situation. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, from my experience, I don't know if I have the same, but when we're doing this, taking kids, the high school students to the memorials, our leaders in school or politicians are like, oh, it's too young to go there. But it was not. So the more you go to a memorial site or museum or hear stories, the more you feel connected. And of course, there are guides or guest speaker will tell you something, but this also talks to you directly. What can I do? You know, that's what happened when I visited the Kigali Memorial, and particularly the section about how kids are killed. It was me and the walls and this room that inspired me to write and also to share stories. Because I was like, that was one thing. They are gone. They can't share their stories. My parents didn't go to school to be able to share the stories, so then I have to do it. If I don't do it, then I'm betraying them. Um, so I think there are many ideas and things, but what you have to do is to try to make them closer to this history. Because what we hear or see in the media is not enough. It's just events, but they don't tell us the root causes and the process. You hear about the genocide, but maybe don't tell you about the stages that it is organized, it is financed, you know. It just thinks just an event, people wake up next day and started to kill, but it's not the case. It's just long time, planting the seeds of the hate. But when we visit memorials, when we hear stories, then we feel closer, and we have kind of indirect talk about the individual um, uh, um, core of what you can do, because we are different. We have different talents. I write, I talk, but other maybe can paint or do sports, or finance, yeah. But the most important is just you feel close to it, and then you own it and you feel responsible, and also feel confident that you can do something about it.
Thank you, Dieudonné. And especially for the educators in the room, more and more I'm finding you can access these extraordinary memorials online. So you can even access memorials in other countries, memorial sites, memorial museums online that you could share with your teachers. And more these memorial exhibits are including stories and videos and artifacts from those time periods, and making it more and more accessible for people to connect to the situation, to what happened on the ground during that time. I'm going to pass the mic over to Mr. Bacher.
Thank you. First of all, bless you for, everything that you went through and sharing your story. It's absolutely amazing. And if I go off the rails too much here, just pass my question to the next person here. But when I hear your story, it just made me think that what I feel is problems in the United States is pretty small compared to what you went through and everything. But how you said your story just resonated. Like I say, my lens is a little bit different here, but I think our political division in our country is very polarizing. It's worse than I have ever experienced in my lifetime. Do you have any opinions, ideas, like how does our country like deal with simpler things than what you dealt with, but how do we get people together to listen to one another, to get them to care to listen to one another? I mean, are there strategies that could go from your lot deeper subject to what I call a lot lesser subject, if that makes any sense? And if I'm way off the rails, go to the next question.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. It's not easy to answer. How do you bring people together after conflict or disagreement? Because the genocide or the violence, uh, um, this is always caused when you start to like there is us and them or others. And also, I think that is what happening in the US, those who voted for who and and against who. And then even if it happens, how do you bring people together? Uh, I think it starts by the initiatives by young people, by anyone, and of course the political will by the government is also important to bring people together. But even before that, initiatives are needed from individuals, someone who starts to create something to bring people together. And one thing is to create a platform for people to talk about it openly. Um, um, and then, of course, people need to be trained to listen to, to disagree, and also to know it's okay to disagree. I think it's okay, in my opinion. But the platform that people come together and also start from the community level. It doesn't need to start at the national level. People can start these initiatives from their own communities to talk about it. And when people talk about it, it's when you realize that there is no, of course, you find solutions, but also the level of the tension um, somehow it goes down. But if you don't talk, then everyone, uh, yeah, you keep this distance and us and them. Uh, but then when you meet, then it's us. There is no them. It's us. And then you own what's going on in your area, and you feel responsible. And also the most important is that what am I doing about it? Um, and this can also start from your family. You can ask your wife, your husband, your children, what do you think about it? And maybe this go to the next neighbor. Um, yeah, and also have to understand it's a journey. Like don't push like to have a solution next day. Yeah, it takes time, but the most important is to start and have platform and initiative. Yes.
Now, I just want to point out something Dieudonné said earlier, in that like people don't wake up one morning and just start killing each other. So there are all these steps, all these things that led up to it. And I know I'm getting I lived in Bosnia for 10 years after the war and genocide, and I'm getting calls from friends and colleagues saying, look at the US, Elon, and look what's happening. I remember this. I remember this. I remember when this happened here. So I think it's really important to look around and see what's happening now and to know things build on each other. Okay. Does anyone, I'm looking for hands. Does anyone, oh, Essie.
There is also a question in the chat.
Oh, is there a question in the chat, Nicole or Essie?
Yeah, by Juliana.
Oh, one second.
Yeah, the question is, Rwanda has made major strides in advancing women in government and positions of power. How pivotal have women been in Rwanda's in
I can
Rwanda?
read it.
In Rwanda's post-genocide
Yeah.
healing and advancement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can say a few things about it. After this major violence as the genocide, of course, it's very important to address it, but also to look and check a society if it is clean. Culturally, here women were not important. I also know it very well as someone who was born and raised in a village, also with many families that are poor. Like if you have boys and girls, then you send boys to school and the girls stay home and help with the household activities. And then you don't need to wait to have a conflict or a violence or a genocide or a war, but in our case we had it. And then you start the journey for unity and for healing. In our country, women, I think it's a 56%. How do you heal? And of course, the healing and the unity, you can't talk about a peace or unity, whatever, without a development, without building your economy. And how do you achieve it if half of your population is discriminated? They have no access to education or to other opportunities. You can't reach anywhere. But this is example of women, but it can also be other groups. So you can't talk about peace and unity or healing a society and by putting anyone um, uh, aside. So that's why this was, of course, the idea of the government to empower women. But and yeah, for sure they have played a big role in the national building. Yeah, and also to heal the society. And of course they deserved because there are also other important things. Like in our culture, a woman is called the mutima w'urugo in Kinyarwanda, and it means is the heart of the home or the house or the family. So, and you can imagine a body without a heart, um, then you are dead. So that was the idea that if you start this journey of building a country in unity, reconciliation, but also economy, that you have also to make sure there is no one left behind.
That's beautiful, Dieudonné. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. The woman is the heart of the home. That's very sweet. We only have like 2 more minutes. I want to see if anyone else has a question, but I have one for you, Dieudonné. If there is a way for people to support the library you're building for the young people, do you want to share if there's a way for us to do that?
Yes, there is many ways education materials exchange with the students or teachers. This can be online, or they can also travel to Dusego. Um, the funding, and also sharing stories to our kids, because in our rural areas also there is a lack of role models, and even kids are limited in dreaming of who they can be. It's just, too low skilled jobs, farmers, or motor taxi driver. So it's also important they talk to teachers, to artists, so that they can be, who they want. So they are not limited to dream, because we need them to help us and to help our society and the world.
So Dieudonné, do you have a website that you put in the chat that people can access if they want to donate to
Yes.
supplies or start having some conversations with your facilitators on different projects?
Yes.
Okay, great. Why don't you put that in? And then I'm also just going to stick this in the site. This is our Imagine program. If you want to read about it, and you could go to the Rwanda section, and there's a video with Dieudonné in there. And thank you. Dieudonné just put his organization's website. So please do check out what they're doing and see how we can support this endeavor. It would be wonderful.